Also, U.S. military was using GPS-like tech during World War II era. Same accuracy, but it was based off of waves.
What you're referring to is called LORAN. If you had actually read that article, then you would have realized that World War II era LORAN, later renamed LORAN-A because of the subsequent development of LORAN-B and LORAN-C, had an accuracy that was measured in the tens of miles. To say that it could pinpoint your position with an accuracy of 25 miles would actually have been generous. The worst GPS systems in use today have an accuracy of about 10 feet, and some of the better systems, including some available on smartphones, have an accuracy of a couple of centimeters. In other words, about 1 inch. Leave it to a flat earther to say that those two are equivalent. I've heard the expression, give them an inch and they'll take a mile, but in what universe is an accuracy of 25 miles equivalent to an accuracy of 1 inch?
I think Neil deGrasse Tyson is a useless cross-dressing pervert, just like Isaac Newton was. But who came up with the idea of putting that crippled retard in a wheelchair? That was brilliant.
What is your source for saying that Neil deGrasse Tyson is a cross-dressing pervert? I'd like to hear more about that. As for Isaac Newton, there is no question that he was indeed a very strange individual. He died a virgin and listed it as his life's greatest achievement. It should be noted here that Nikola Tesla also died a virgin and was quite proud of that fact. As for Stephen Hawking, I neither dismissed him nor granted him credence based on his medical condition. What you are doing is engaging in a logical fallacy known as argumentum ad hominem. Instead of attacking a person's idea, you're attacking the person himself. I've been subjected to that myself many times in the comments, and such comments actually say a lot more about the people making the comments than they do about me. While it's true that a statement coming from someone with a PhD in their field of study does seem to have more credence than a statement coming from a high school dropout, we usually judge ideas based on their own merits and upon the evidence that will tend to either confirm or refute them.
It is flat, you idiot.
Talking to your own reflection in the mirror is a bad habit. If you keep it up, you may convince yourself that the earth indeed is flat and that you are, in fact, an idiot. I can assure you, however, that at most, only one of those two statements is actually true.
Somehow you had to talk about radio waves without mentioning Dr. Nikola Tesla or the additional fourth kind of wave called scalar waves. Curious why you left that info out?
You'll notice that I didn't mention Hiram Percy Maxim either, or Fessenden for that matter. As for scalar waves, I didn't mention them because they don't exist. Nikola Tesla came up with the idea of scalar waves when he was in the middle of a mental breakdown, and today scalar waves are considered to have just about as much merit as phrenology.
Gleason map. Explain?
The Gleason map is an azimuthal equidistant projection, also known as a polar projection, or you could say a great circle map centered on the North Pole. It is labeled as a longitude and time calculator and was intended for that purpose, not to represent the actual shape of the Earth. It says right on it that it is a projection, but flat earthers just don't seem to grasp the meaning of that term.
It doesn't bother you that science fiction came first, then the space race crap? I mean, come on. A Space Odyssey came out a year before the moon landing.
A movie about going to the moon came out in 1902. When Star Trek came out featuring computers that could both speak and respond to verbal commands, it was criticized for being unrealistic, yet we have such technology now and many use it daily. I'm not in the least bit bothered by the fact that conception precedes reality. First we dream it, then we plan it, and finally we achieve it. That's how things get done.
Since the 1920s, there has been radio transmitters that can transmit across your supposed globe. So tell people how in almost 100 years we haven't improved that.
I explained in the video about how it is possible to transmit to anywhere on Earth using ground waves at any time of day or night. I also explained that it is rarely used today because of the huge antennas needed and the massive amounts of power it requires. There are other problems as well, such as vulnerability to static and the small bandwidth available. What you are describing is not a practical means of communication suitable for everyday use.
I thought of running this and not a dude. Clickbait.
Let me see if I've got this straight. You saw a thumbnail of a pair of eyes, and you clicked on it because you thought the eyes belonged to a woman. What kind of video did you think this was?
Over 70% of the Earth's known surface is covered by water. Water levels itself. Level is flat. Case closed.
Water seeks its own level and assumes the shape of its container. Water on Earth is drawn toward the center of the Earth by the force of gravity, and in doing so it follows the curve of the Earth. It is thus conforming to the shape of its container, specifically the Earth and the Earth's gravity. Water is thus level relative to the surface of the Earth. When you see a child drinking water or some other liquid through a crazy straw, you have no trouble with the fact that it follows the complex, tight curves of the straw. Yet you have issues with water following the relatively simple and gentle curve of the Earth.
The heading of this video was deceiving, and you know it was deceiving because you're a bunch of liars. How is it possible to prove that there's such a thing as the ionosphere other than just a lie backed up by a bunch of liars? Go jump off the edge of your maple leaf ladders because there is a real flat Earth, and it doesn't have an edge as a firmament and a dome, along with a depth that cannot be achieved beyond 7.5 miles. See you, losers.
Numerous methods have confirmed that the ionosphere exists, and I have mentioned just a few in this video. I find your post to be rather disjointed and incoherent, but it appears that you are expressing an opinion and not actually making an argument. I find no merit in your opinion.
Why are all of NASA photos of Earth not a spheroid? Perfect blue marble.
There is a measurable bulge in the middle of the Earth, and it is slightly bigger in the southern hemisphere than in the northern hemisphere. The difference, however, is so slight that you will never notice it in an image of the Earth small enough so that you can see the whole Earth. The Earth is actually more perfectly spherical and smoother than a billiard ball.
It's pear-shaped, according to Neil deGrasse Tyson, chubby at the middle. Hee hee! Globetrotters are stupid sheeple. By the way, I am technical school educated. Newspapers in the 1900s talk about people going to prison for saying the Earth is round. Look it up, you in retards.
Neil Tyson made a poor choice of words when he said that the Earth was pear-shaped. He didn't mean that literally, and I wouldn't have put it that way. I don't believe anything just because Neil Tyson said it. My knowledge of the shape of the Earth has nothing to do with him. The Earth is actually more perfectly spherical and smoother than a billiard ball. I don't believe anything just because Neil Tyson said it. My knowledge of the shape of the Earth has nothing to do with him. The Earth is actually more perfectly spherical and smoother than a billiard ball.
What a load of BS. It is embarrassing how indoctrinated hams are. Satellites are totally fake, as is space. Nothing but NASA, Satan, lies. CGI images are all you have to prove a globe? Hilarious! You said, quote, no ham was operated from the surface of the moon. So if the moon landings are real, which obviously they are not, how did radio comms work back then? Maybe 2 cans and a piece of string? The contradictions you speak is incredible. Scientism is a religion of Satan. All your role model so-called scientists and Einsteins of this world were 33-degree Freemasons. Look it up for yourselves. Understand Freemasonry, then you little bubbles will burst. And yes, I'm a ham.
Space and satellites are real, and you gave no reason for why you think they aren't. So you've made no argument to debunk. I said no ham has operated from the surface of the moon. I never said that no RF communication took place from the surface of the moon. What an ignorant and foolish leap you've made. Obviously, NASA used their own communication systems that have absolutely nothing to do with ham radio. If you think that scientism is satanic, then you better discard your computer or phone, take off all your clothes, and start digging around in the woods with your bare hands for your next meal. Because electronics, clothing, agriculture, and tools are all products of science, and you are practicing applied science every time you use any of them. If you manage to get a ham license of any class, despite not knowing the difference between ham radio and NASA communications, then the licensing requirements are in serious need of review.
You just make assertions without any proof whatsoever. There is a thing called scientific proof, you know, and it has at least 3 parts. The first part is called a premise or hypothesis, in which one states what it is to be proved or demonstrated. The second is a set of statements of evidence that support the premise. Third is an argument that conclude that the evidence lead to the truth of the premise or hypothesis, and that no other explanation is possible using the rules of logic. From this it is clear that a statement like, "The Earth is a sphere because I saw the photoshopped image of Apollo 11," does not prove anything. Nor does a statement like, "The sun will rise tomorrow morning," based on the fact that it has every morning for the last 5,000 years. This is not proof of anything. It is the difference between inductive and deductive reasoning. No matter how authoritative one may sound, assertions and induction is never proof to a real scientist. Your idea that ham radio operations prove a spherical Earth and disproves a flat Earth does not hold water. By the way, the argument is between a spherical or heliocentric versus a flat Earth, which could be round or ellipsoidal disk roughly. Nice try, but it's dishonest.
You gave a reasonably good description of the scientific method, yet you failed to recognize it when you saw it. I will elaborate on that later. Your ignorance regarding the blue marble picture is astonishing. That photograph was taken on Apollo 17 in 1972, not Apollo 11. It was widely distributed at the time as actual photographic prints, not digital images or even color lithographs. Photoshop wasn't even invented until 1990. Do you really think that some time traveler went to the 1990s and brought a copy of Photoshop along with a computer to run it on back to 1972 and then figure out a way to use it on a photographic negative so that the altered images could be used to make prints? Come on now, that's absurd. This is a straw man argument anyway, since I never said that that photograph or any other image proved anything. Now for an argument that is scientific. We can look at the hypothesis that the world is a globe instead of a flat disk. If the model for the Earth is correct and shows the actual shape of the Earth, then beam headings derived from that model should be correct. Experiments with beam headings show that the beam headings suggested by various flat maps for different parts of the world are wrong, and the beam headings derived from the globe model are correct. The only rational conclusion is that the flat maps are all wrong and the globe model is correct. By the way, it is well understood that round Earth refers to the spherical model and flat Earth refers to a coin-shaped model, although some flat earthers do claim that the Earth is square. So don't play these silly little word games. It won't score you any points, and it just makes you look childish.
So can you tell me why your deep craters are reflecting the blue of the Earth's sky 238,000 miles away? Just asking.
Obviously they aren't. You are seeing the light from the moon being filtered through the blue of the sky, thus giving it a bluish cast. Any fourth grader could understand that.
This supposed ham operator is a con operator. Go here for some easy-to-understand logic. Don't you think this simple situation ought to be simple to explain? It really is, but you have to strip away all the plethora of lies fed to us constantly. Why all the globe animations before movies and a globe in our passports? They don't want us to consider the truth that we are lied to by the gooberment all the time about most topics.
The globe is shown in these places because that is how the Earth is actually shaped. They aren't trying to convince anyone.
Thousands of miles of undersea cables connecting all the country's internet and other communications together, because we have satellites in space doing the job. LOL. Oh, those cables are just there for backup, in case the satellites fail. LOL.
There isn't nearly enough bandwidth available on those satellites to carry anywhere near the bandwidth carried by the cables. That's not what satellites are used for, and the delay in going to the satellite and back would make any live video a joke.
Well, well, well. Another nice video that does nothing to change the fact that the Earth is flat. Sad thing is, historically, we all knew the Earth was flat. It has only been a ball over the past 5 centuries. Excuse me, a pear-shaped oblate spheroid. Such nonsense. I will not get into it yet. I will leave you with this question. If the world is round and not flat, then why can Polaris, North Star, be seen from below the equator? Explain this for me.
Another flat earther ignorantly buying into the Columbus myth. The Earth was proven to be round over 2,000 years ago, though reliable sources say that it may be possible to see Polaris up to 1.3 degrees south of the equator due to a combination of refraction and altitude. This is far short of being visible anywhere on Earth, which is what would happen if the Earth was really flat.
Another 25 minutes wasted on some dip with a laptop? LOL. Essa fatiote.
Actually, I'm using a desktop. Not that it is any of your business, but how could you possibly know what kind of computer I'm using?
I'm so relieved to receive this deceive.
Wow, you're a poet, and you actually know it. You know, I can do that too. If you just listen, the truth you will hear. GPS works because the Earth is a sphere. And that will wrap up this edition of Your Dumb Flat Earth Comments. So be sure to like, subscribe, and share.